But when it comes to betting on the NFL draft, it is the ultimate game of who do you trust. Like we talk about this in baseball, you try to pick players and teams that you trust. But in the NFL draft, it's not a game. There's not a ball
Mm-hmm.
involved. It is not a sport that is being played. It is simply an information based market. So you really have to pick your sources wisely. But one highly regarded source, Adam Schefter, who's probably the number one, the top dog when it comes to NFL insiders, he has said that the Commanders have decided on LSU quarterback and reigning Heisman Trophy winner Jayden Daniels as their choice with the number 2 overall pick. He says, and I quote, "I think you can go get those Jayden Daniels jerseys." Now, the odds on Jayden Daniels to go number 2 overall to the Commanders, as it sits, is minus 225. Jenks, to me, if I was going out to buy a uniform, I would want those odds to be much higher or
Yes.
much more juice, I guess I would say. Because if this
Yes.
was a sure deal, wouldn't it be more than minus 225? Wouldn't it be like
Yeah.
minus 1,000?
You would think, right? Oh, man, the NFL draft, this is such a crazy market. I do not like betting on the NFL draft at all. And this is exactly the reason why. Exactly the reason why. So maybe Daniels is the guy. But again, things like this, the draft is still, what, a week and a half away? So we have plenty of time for things to change. And a lot of this has to do not necessarily with the Commanders because they have the number 2 overall pick, right? I don't know why they would be wanting to throw someone off because we know the Bears are going with Caleb Williams, but you just never know the decision that a team is going to make, or they can change their minds too. When you have if you have the number 2 overall pick and you're deciding between Daniels or Maye, there's no question that you could continue looking at tape. You could continue having discussions. You discover something. You rethink things through. Maybe you overanalyze and you change your mind. That can happen too. So I'm with you. If I'm betting on, well, I'm not going to bet this market, but I'm going to get a jersey that says Jayden Daniels on it. I'm going to wait until it's minus 1,000 minimum. I'm not going to go minus 200 because these odds could flip flop by tomorrow.
Yeah, buying a jersey is a bet in itself, is it not? Like when you are
Yes.
buying a jersey of your favorite player, like imagine the people that bought Derrick Henry uniforms last year. And now they're sitting there saying, well, this was a bet that I did not win, or at least in the long term, because you got to win it for one whole season. And those jerseys are not cheap. And a lot of this is because it's not just one sided, it is multifaceted in that say, yeah, they really like Jayden Daniels, but they are offered some kind of package to trade. I don't think that this happens, but there are other teams involved here. And if the rug is pulled out from underneath Caleb Williams and he doesn't go first overall, which I know is, kind of out of the realm of what we're expecting, but still, there are other things that go into this other than just the Commanders simply liking Jayden Daniels.
Now the question is, A, what are the Braves going to do? And then B, if you're looking at Cy Young odds, you got Zach Wheeler 5-1, Zach Allen 7-1, Freddie Peralta plus 750. I think the Braves have a good enough farm system, and they're good enough as a team, as we know, to step up and be okay. But this changes the futures odds in the NL pitching market in a big way.
Well, obviously, because Spencer Strider was one of the favorites. I do think for a second we need to put out a PSA that says before you run and cash out all of your Braves futures, you need to remember that it feels like this happens every single year to a contender. Just last year, when the Rangers were missing Jacob deGrom, everybody said, oh no, the sky's falling. They're never going to do anything. What do? They won a World Series. So if you have a front office that's willing to go out and make some moves to shore up the gaps that whoever leaves in the rotation, you can still win something. In fact, the Braves, didn't they win a World Series, or at least went to the World Series when Ronald Acuna Jr. was hurt? He's an MVP candidate. So I feel like the Braves can still be fine, even without Max Fried. As far as the Cy Young goes, I do think it's wide open right now, but you've got to remember that the sexy stat in Cy Young is always the strikeout. You got to at least have some. So that kind of takes me off of guys like Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler's going to have good numbers, but he also hasn't been getting a ton of run support. Wins aren't the end all be all when it comes to Cy Young, but still, he's the favorite for a reason, but I don't think there's a ton of value there, especially since there's plenty of other guys that can certainly win it. Tyler Glass now is intriguing. We know he can rack up the strikeouts. Last time against the Twins, I think he had 14 Ks. Also plays for a big market team. The visibility is there, and he's probably going to get the wins.
I don't like to get caught up in hyperbole and in the moment and saying, oh, well, Scottie Scheffler is going to dominate for the next 6-7 years. But it is a possibility, because this was not just the PGA Tour guys, not just the LIV guys, and I know they're separated right now, but in these majors, in these big events, Scottie is coming off winning back-to-back the Players. Now he has his second major overall, and he looks like he's playing at a completely different level than his peers.
Oh, for sure. Maybe not for the next 6-7 years, but at least in this recent stretch, at least for the next 1 to 2 years, because he has looked like the guy to beat on tour and even in the majors. It feels like he's always up there. Even Scottie Scheffler at his worst is like top 5. Like, even when he doesn't have his putter, because that's been the one knock on Scottie Scheffler, is that maybe he's not the best putter. But over the past couple of tournaments, the putting has been a little bit better. And plus, when you have such good approach shots, you don't have to be that good of a putter. You know, if you are putting it right by the pin all the time, and Scottie Scheffler is one of the best at scrambling on tour, and every single aspect of his game other than putting is so good that it feels unfair to the rest of the competition. I think the way to spin this forward now is, we know that Scottie Scheffler is somebody who keeps his life balanced. He has said that now that he is going to have a child, him and his wife Meredith are expecting their first baby. Do you think this takes away from his success on tour? If he's somebody who has come out and said that, you know, my life comes first, work comes second, do you think being a father will actually take away from some practice time, from anything? Because at this point, like, what's the weakness with Scottie Scheffler? We can't find one. So maybe this is the only route.
Yeah, and remember, it was not that long ago we were talking about Scottie's putting. Everyone was talking about his putting. He can't putt. Well, he was one of the best putters all tournament long, and it has been that way. So even that area of his game, and he came out and essentially said, I'm tired of talking about this. I'm going to be fine. He is fine. I tend to agree. I certainly am not a father, but I think any parent would agree that once you have a child, it changes everything. How could it not? And I also think it's about perspective. If Scottie Scheffler is saying this, it doesn't mean his game is going to drop off, but not every athlete is built like Tiger, for example. Tiger Woods has had a sole focus, and I know he's way past his prime now, shot 16 over for the tournament, worst 72-hole score of his professional career. But early in his career, or at least during his prime, he wanted to break Jack's record. That's all he talked about, was winning the most majors in history, being the greatest golfer ever. And it doesn't mean that Scottie doesn't want to compete. It doesn't mean that he's not a fiery competitor, but priorities certainly change over time. And now that Scottie has 2 green jackets, he's gotten over that hump. I don't necessarily think that we'll see any sort of drop off, but it wouldn't stun me if, by his own admission, he says golf is important to me, but my family's going to come first. And maybe he doesn't have some sort of crazy dominant stretch because he's spending more time with his family. I think it's a real possibility, but I certainly don't think that he's going to suddenly become just a guy.